The day just started and it's already awesome. You know why? Because it's Friday. Because even when you have a bad Friday, it's still a Friday, and you got the weekend right around the corner. It's going to be fantastic. And thanks for being here. A little late starting the live stream today. Sorry about that. It doesn't matter if you're listening or watching later on the replay, but I started the live stream a little late. You know why? I had to check out, watch, and listen some of the Bruce Springsteen, Tom Morello, Justice for Standing Up for Crime in Minneapolis crap, whatever the hell that. Oh boy, was that something. What a bunch of garbage. Anyway, we'll get to that to have some Friday fun. But first of all, let's get to this. Thanks for finding the Wicked Radio live stream, late as it may be today. X, YouTube, and Facebook, and the audio podcast as well. Replay on all that stuff. Let's get right to it. You know, I will always admit when I'm wrong. I sure love to talk about me being right. You know that. But I'll admit when I was wrong, because I said here 2 days ago, was it 2, 3? After the State of the Union address, that the GOP will never be smart enough. Republicans will never be smart or tough enough to use President Trump's beautifully set trap he marched the Democrats into to refuse to stand for Americans. I'm summarizing, but that's exactly what it was. Well, I'm wrong as far as the GOP goes, because they just released the greatest campaign ad of all time. Now, if you don't have individual people running in the midterms using this ad, and if you don't see this ad from now until kingdom come, they still are dumb. But I'll admit when I'm wrong, because they used the speech, they created the ad, and it's fantastic.
If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
Excellent. Excellent. You produced it. You got it out there. It's out to the world now. Maybe I'm only half wrong, because now it's up to individual people running in races throughout the entire country, and there's a lot of them coming up in the midterms, to use this ad. I'm sure the GOP will let you use it. Whoever's running, you better use this and make use of it. But so far, I'm so glad to see that. It's on a silver platter. He gave this to you on a silver platter. It outlines everything that says and describes the situation where we're currently in. Use it. Now, one of those things he talked about in the speech the other night, and I hate to keep referring to the State of the Union, but it's pretty impactful, talked about the SAVE Act. Pass the Save America Act now. Secure our elections, voter ID only, and only in limited circumstances we have mail-in ballots. What's holding it up? Where are we? Where's that SAVE Act we all wanted? Close to 90% of the country now. Close to high 80s, guys. That's independents, Republicans, Democrats. Everybody wants this except who? People who want to cheat elections. And some very decrepit, corrupt, completely compromised senators holding this thing up. First and foremost, the turtle, Mitch McConnell. Now, this is mostly a visual, but you get the gist. A reporter, I don't know who it is, confronted him. He's in a wheelchair now, by the way. He cannot stand. He's in a wheelchair being pushed by his aides, and she asked, what's the holdup? What's going on with this? Now, you won't hear a response from Mitch McConnell because he can't respond. He's a vegetable. We only have 100 senators, 2 from each state. One of them holding up, securing our elections. It sounds bizarre to even say this. Is in a vegetative state and he can't answer a question. But she tried.
McConnell, can you give us some information on why you blocked the SAVE Act, or any information on your thoughts on what Rep. Tim Burchett said about staffers running your office? Any comments, sir?
There's no comment. If you're an audio listener, you didn't really miss anything because he's just going. He's in a vegetative state. I don't do that to make fun of him personally. I'm just telling you it's frightening. That guy is in a vegetative state, and he's a senator, and he's blocking the SAVE Act, one of them, one of the handful. Want to hear something even scarier? It's not him blocking it. It's the staffers. Tim Burchett, congressman from Tennessee, I love Tim, dadgummit, he pointed this out 2 weeks ago, where he talked about McConnell's staffers specifically, and the reporter asked that. McConnell's staffers are blocking this. Who are they? Egghead, Ivy League, completely compromised young idiots who are running this because they're being controlled by somebody else. Completely corrupt. That's who's. And Tim Burchett pointed this out, and he said, guess what? He's not the only one. This isn't the only situation where this happens. That's where we are right now. That's how scary this is. That's why, I'm joking around, but you see me get so upset when you talk about Republicans not fighting, not getting smart. They're just as corrupt. Trust me on this. I know I make fun of Democrats because they're evil, but there's just as many corrupt Republicans in there, and that's the true enemy of Trump trying to get things done. That's where we are. That guy right there. Senator McConnell, why are you blocking the SAVE Act? That's where we are. If that scares you, good. But always find the good. What's the takeaway? You're aware of it now. Were you aware of it before? Nope. All right, let's get to this again. And I promise I'll get out of politics and all that other stuff, but this is just too good not to talk about. Hillary Clinton. That's right, Hillary. She's on the hot seat about the whole Epstein thing. Yes, Epstein rears its ugly head again. But this got interesting, actually. There was a hearing about the Clinton Foundation connection and ties to Jeffrey Epstein yesterday. Now, apparently during the hearing, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, she's a firebrand, she held up a picture, I guess that was out of bounds, you weren't supposed to do that in the hearing, of her and Bill Clinton with Epstein, reportedly. And Hillary stormed out. She actually left, gathered with her attorneys, and then they approached it again. So that was interesting. What's even more interesting was she was lying about her connection and the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation's connection with Jeffrey Epstein. She flat out lied. So did she perjure herself? Let me go to Jonathan Turley. This is one of the few. It's always Dershowitz and Jonathan Turley I go to on constitutional legal issues. Now, this is what Jonathan Turley said before the hearing yesterday, which, by the way, was in Chappaqua, New York. This is what Turley said what the hearing was supposed to be all about.
Obviously, most attention is with Bill Clinton, who was on this plane of Epstein at least 16 times. There's some very embarrassing photos that have come out in these files. But today, Hillary Clinton will face some equally difficult questions when it comes to their global initiative and foundation. Epstein seems to have played a role in helping the Clintons in that area. And also, Hillary Clinton had a relationship with Maxwell. And while both of them have tried to distance themselves as all of these files came out, Maxwell was invited to her daughter's wedding. So this was not a arm's length relationship.
So it came up in this hearing yesterday, and she said it many times. I have nothing to do with, we didn't know anything about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Well, as you heard Jonathan Turley say right there, then why'd you invite her to your daughter's wedding? Let me just break this down into real people terms. You and me and real people, like you have a relative, you're in charge of the guest list, let's say, for a wedding. Some people, work associates, you got to invite because you kind of have to, right? Otherwise, why would you invite them? Why would you invite Ghislaine Maxwell unless you had some sort of, either a debt or some sort of connection you needed to respond to and react to with her? But she was in the hearing and she was asked about that and she denied it. And then she was asked about it again. And the whole connection involving the Clinton Foundation and Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein and all that whole disgusting, gross affair, and once again denied it at the press conference.
James Matthews from Sky News. Can I ask, why was Ghislaine Maxwell invited to her daughter Chelsea Clinton's wedding in 2010? She'd already been mentioned in a civil lawsuit by Virginia Giuffre before that. Jeffrey Epstein had already been convicted before that.
She came as the plus one, the guest of someone who was invited.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Sure she was. I don't think at the time, and you're talking about early 2000s, that's not a plus one. That's the 1-1. And you're only at your daughter's wedding if you kind of feel obligated to bring her there. Now, why would you be obligated? Well, it's been a lot of people for many, many years, and it just seems so obvious, but now it's finally coming out because you have to have hearings about these things, about how involved the Epsteins, and I'll say that with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, were with the Clintons. Seems to be pretty obvious. You know who's said that for years? Roger Stone. He was talking to Benny Johnson yesterday. I've mentioned Benny Johnson a lot this week. He's been making some news. But anyway, remember Roger Stone, political operative? Of course he's biased. Of course he has an angle, but doesn't mean he's wrong.
This is all pretty incredible in view of the fact that Jeffrey Epstein provided the seed capital for the Clinton Foundation and for the Clinton Global Initiative. He also was a heavy donor to Hillary's Senate race, the New York Democrat Party, and, of course, his good friend, Senator Chuck Schumer.
That's why you invite somebody to your daughter's wedding, even if you don't personally like them, or if you do. Obligation, right? Think about if you're a parent and you've married off one of your kids, you got to put together the guest list, or your own marriage. Oh, there's always that section of a table. You're like, do they have to be there? I have to invite them. Not a family thing, but some, work, relation, business partner. Got to invite them. So it seems like an innocuous question and kind of like a silly topic to talk about. Why are they talking about Chelsea's guest list? Because those are very influential people who may have had some power over the Clintons. Just saying. Very, very interesting. All right, let's get out of there. I can't talk about that swamp anymore. Let's talk about a different kind of swamp. One that exists in the music industry. Yeah, rock and roll, right? Rock and roll. I love it. It's part of my DNA. It's about rebellion. It's about sticking it to the man. It's about standing up against government and, censorship and all that stuff. Yeah, not so much anymore. Isn't it amazing and sad? If you're a rock fan, you've seen this develop, how it's gone from the 60s, let's just say like the Woodstock era, counterculture. Don't trust, they used to have a saying, don't trust anybody over 30. Don't trust the government. Government's trying to shut you down. We're nonconformist. We're not. Isn't it sad how so many so-called rock and roll rebels are the conformists now, and they are the elites, and they are the establishment, and they are the machine. More on that in a second. None more obvious than Bruce Springsteen. You've heard me rail against Springsteen for quite some time, because I take this personally, because I was always such a big Bruce Springsteen fan. And I'm the one who's always saying actors, musicians, writers, whatever it is, you got to put their politics aside. Just, think of them as not even real people. Otherwise, you go crazy and never be able to listen to them again. Springsteen's different from me because he's so out there. He's so dumb. And he's such a puppet for the establishment. And he doesn't even realize it. This is what drives me so crazy about him. So I can't deal with him at all. Well, now, I think it was about a month ago, maybe a month ago, I was playing on here. He rewrote The Streets of Philadelphia, one of his hit songs, to be The Streets of Minneapolis. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because they're so downtrodden now, right? Because they dared, because the government dared to come in there and clean things up. Well, he's toured up with this tour. It's I can't even remember the name of the tour. I was listening to it before. The Peace and Justice and how dare they clean up illegal immigration and fraud and murderers on our streets. We're going to rebel against that tour. Whatever the hell you call it. I don't know. But interesting enough, he's teamed up on the tour with Tom Morello. You may not know Tom Morello, so I'm going to explain who Tom Morello is for you. He's a guitarist that was, his band was Rage Against the Machine, who now every time they post something online, they get blasted and ratioed to oblivion because now they call him Rage for the Machine. Because how did this happen? Once again, you'd think a band name called Rage Against the Machine, right? That's nonconformist. That's, we're independent. We're not this. We're true Americans. Oh, no. They're Rage for the Machine. Because during the COVID era, Rage for the Machine did a lot of promotion. And were out there insisting and demanding everybody get the COVID shot. They were also saying you should be locked down. They were fully in support of government efforts to shut down businesses and shut down schools and lock people up in their homes in the COVID era and all that exerted power, right? It doesn't sound too rock and roll rebellious to me. So it makes perfect sense that Tom Morello from Rage for the Machine and Bruce Springsteen, puppet dope, would team up for this tour. Ready for the statement from Tom Morello? Here he is, Rage for the Machine. Together, Bruce, the E Street Band, and I are going to turn a spotlight on the current threats to democracy. Oh, there's that term again. Threat to democracy. Remember Biden said, if Trump voters are a threat to democracy? Yeah, well, Tom Morello says it now. Threat to democracy and human rights happening all around us in the spirit of freedom, justice, and rock and roll. Specifically talking about Minneapolis. Because how dare they actually try to clean up crime, fraud, waste, murder, rape, illegal immigration on those streets. That's seen by these morons, these useless morons for the establishment. They see that as a bad thing. This is what they're trying to turn rock and roll into. Well, here's a little bit of the show together. This is Bruce's spotlight just the other night. Let's see how he's doing. Yeah, thrilling, great. I hope you didn't waste your money on that. Wow. Rage for the Machine. Told you about Bruce. This is a guy that's been claiming that he's the working man's musician since 1975. Since 1975, when Born to Run came out, he's been a multi-millionaire. No fault of his own. Unbelievably great album. Great performer back then. But here's the problem. He went on through his career, and since then, since 1975, 50 years, he's been surrounded by nothing but people like that. People like the Tom Morellos of the world. People like the highly influential Hollywood socialists, leftists, that are he's surrounded by them all the time, feeding him information, feeding him. Springsteen's never been very bright, but when you're fed 50 years of that kind of propaganda and you're constantly surrounded those people, so you can get into the nice, cocktail parties and all that other stuff, that's what you turn into. That's what that guy is now. Completely, totally, absolutely clueless about real life, what real life is like for real Americans. And then he does something like this. We're going to fight for the streets of Minneapolis. We're going to fight for the fraud. We're going to fight for illegal immigration. We're going to fight for murders. We're going to fight for corrupt prosecutors. We're going to keep all that going because we don't like this Trump guy. There you are. And sadly, there's enough people who don't understand that don't get it. Not you. Just people out there like the dopes who would be dumb enough to pay for a ticket for that nonsense who actually believe it. Sad. I don't think it's going to last. I think true rock and roll will always survive. The rebellion aspect of it, the freedom. That not, fighting against people, exact people like that, against Springsteen and Morello who want to censor you if you happen to have a different opinion. It won't last, but you got to point it out when you can. Streets of Minneapolis. Oh, my God. All right, it's Friday. That's the big news. Have a great, wicked, awesome weekend. Who the heck knows what's going to happen? Very serious news week, so hopefully it's going to be a lot less serious, and we can talk about some good stuff and some big wins. But the big takeaway is this. Besides the Springsteen-Morello stuff, keep an eye on the GOP thing, too. I was wrong. I'll admit it. They immediately made a campaign ad out of the awesome speech that Trump gave to put the Democrats on the hot seat. Demand and make sure that individual candidates coming up in the midterms use that too and stay strong and stay tough. They may. I don't know. We'll see. Thanks for finding me in the live stream and the replay on X and YouTube and Facebook and the audio podcast too. Appreciate you as always. Make it a wicked awesome Friday and an even better weekend. I'll talk to you Monday.